Okay, so we're going to start standing up in a circle, big circle. And see if you can maybe push those chairs back a little bit so we can be in a good circle. Okay. Awesome. So let's just start actually coming into some mindfulness of our bodies. So if you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes. Just feeling into your body this morning. So noticing your energy level. Notice if you feel tired or energized. Can you get a sense of your feet on the ground? And then noticing your breath for a few moments. So noticing, is your breath shallow or deep? Smooth? And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And we're just take a few moments to look around the room. And you're totally welcome to look at people's feet. You don't have to look people in the eye. But just so you can come on in, let's make a bigger circle, kind of open up so people can join in. As you do this, the invitation is just to notice as you look around, does this feel awkward? Are you like, oh, I hate this kind of stuff? Why are they making me do this? Except for you came to the relational mindfulness thing. So just notice what you're feeling as you look around. The other thing that can be really interesting is as you look at people, do they look three-dimensional? Or do they look a little flat, right? You might also notice just the immediate judgments that come up about people. And sometimes even, I like that person. I don't think I like that person. Whatever the thoughts are that just arise spontaneously when we come into a room of strangers. All right. So this is how we, more or less, one of the ways that we start teen retreat. And teens arrive. This is like the worst part of teen retreat. It's so awkward, right? You're like 14, 17. You don't know anyone. Your parents probably really encouraged you to come. And it's like you don't know how to interact with people, so there's that awkwardness, right? So we try to right away start creating an atmosphere for people to start connecting on a little bit deeper level, all right? And we also just notice that that's true. It's totally awkward for most of us to be in a group of strangers at first. So this next activity, I don't really know what it's called. We call it milling, maybe. So we're just going to walk around the room, kind of mill about. You do not have to look at people. Just kind of walk around. When I ring the bell, you're going to find the person who's closest to you and get back to back with them. So find a partner, get back to back. If you don't have a partner, raise your hand. Yeah. Okay, great, awesome. Everyone's got a partner. So I'll just kind of talk this through as we do it. Back to back is great because it reduces chatting, right? So it's not usually as much of a problem when kids don't know each other, but this can be really helpful if you're trying to do this activity. So when you turn around, I'm going to invite you to share with your partner 3 adjectives of what you were like as a teenager. Okay? So, more or less a few words about who you were, what you were like, some qualities of being a teenager. And we'll have the person with the longer hair go first. Okay? So you can turn around and share that. I'll ring the bell and you'll switch. And if you haven't switched partners already, switch to the next person. So make sure both of you are going. All right, and finishing up your last words, your last sentence, last syllable, and then you can thank your partner in whatever way feels appropriate. And we'll continue to mill about. Okay, so find the person closest to you, get back to back. Raise your hand if you don't have a partner. Find someone with a raised hand. Over here, you guys can be together, you ladies, women. Great. Okay, so this one, when you turn around, I want you to share, or please share, one thing that you loved about being a teenager and one thing that you hated about being a teenager. Okay? And so this time, the person with the brighter colors is going to go first. You decide. Okay, you can go ahead and turn around. And so if you haven't switched, switch to the other partner. So make sure both of you have time. All right, and finishing up your sentence, finishing up your last words, and your last syllable. And then you can thank your partner, whatever way feels good. And then this last time, you can begin to mill about. And as you do this, being mindful of how it feels. Just being curious. How is this for you? Is it fun? Is it uncomfortable? How do you know that? Where do you notice that? So find a person, come back to back. Raise your hand if you don't have a partner. Okay, great. So for this last one, just taking a moment to reflect on any mentors that you had as a young person. Whatever that looked like, a teacher, it could have even been a peer, but someone that was a supportive model or mentor for you as a young person. And then kind of reflecting on what their qualities were. So when we turn around, you can share a few of the qualities of that mentor. What made them a mentor for you? So, and this time we'll have the person who is shorter go first. Okay, you can turn around. I know. It's pretty... Yeah, well... And then as you're ready, finishing up your last sentence, and finishing up your last word, and your last syllable. And again, you can thank your partner, whatever way feels good. And then let's make our way back out to the circle. So come back into a circle. So let's stand. We'll sit down in just a moment. So we'll stand still one last time. So at this point, we would go around and everyone could share their name and something about themselves, maybe where they came from, and one fun fact. And then something that we've been doing a lot recently is then we invite anyone else to share something about you. So if you talk, so we would remind everyone to kind of really listen and remember what people said. And so then you would just be popcorn style. So you would introduce yourself.
I'm Heidi from Denmark.
Great. Did anyone talk with Heidi? Do you remember anything you want to say about that you remember from your conversation? Did anyone else? Anyone remember a fun fact about Heidi?
Yeah, she loved being a teenager and she hated her parents.
Okay. All right. And so the other thing we can do is if that's true for us, right? Yeah, I hear that. I resonate. Right? So it's just a way to support that. And then we go around the whole circle and then just inviting people to share something that they learned about them. Just maybe one popcorn style thing. And so it's a way that you get to start to be seen and you were heard by someone else. Yeah. And so then the invitation is to now, we didn't have quite as long as we would, but just take a moment again to look around the room. Notice how you're feeling in your body. So this is like 50% noticing your experience internally, 50% paying attention to what's happening out there. And just see if anything has shifted, if it's different, if it's not from when we first stood in the circle. Great. So thank you for starting that way. And you can just grab a chair and kind of move into the middle. So maybe pull. Some people have to kind of really pull in. This is our disclosure. So just to give you, I'm the executive director of Inward Bound Mindfulness Education, and I also am a lead teacher on our teen retreats. So I started teaching and then took over as ED 2 years ago. So I am paid, but I didn't have anything to do. This research was done independently by a professor, Brian Galla, who's from the University of Pennsylvania. But his baby is due any second. Like it could be right now. He could be having a baby. So he wasn't able to come. And awesomely, Willoughby offered to step in. And since I don't really know the details of the science, she'll be able to answer those kinds of questions and give a good overview of it. So I was going to show the video, but I'm not. You can, if you are interested, there's a video online that we just made recently. And you can see images from the retreats and also the kids themselves, the teens themselves, talking about their experience on retreat. So if you're interested, it's just like less than 3 minutes. And so this is where we teach retreats across the country. We primarily lead retreats in the summer, so it's like meditation camp, basically. So they happen in the summer and then also over New Year's and breaks. We just did a weekend retreat outside of New York City this past weekend with a group from Brooklyn. It was totally awesome. And so Nashville, we're growing really rapidly right now. So 3 years ago, we led retreats in Virginia. That was the only place, and then you can see we're running a number of them across the country. The retreats are 5 nights long, mostly. And those are the residential retreats. Then we also, last year, started doing wilderness backpacking retreats. And those are 10 days long. And so we started in a retreat center, and then we'd go out in small groups into the wilderness and actually backpack and meditate and do mindfulness along the way. And then the kids get a solo at the end, which theoretically, we invite them to meditate during, but we'll see, more or less. This is the daily schedule, and this is actually a daily schedule from the last day of the retreat, but it's basically similar to how each day goes. So there's about 4 to 5 hours of formal meditation practice a day. So silent retreat time. All of the words that are in black, that's silent periods. And the blue is talking periods. So they go in and out of silence each day. We talk about that like the breath. The inhale, we come out, we engage, we interact. The exhale, we come in. It's more introspective. And so it's this rhythm between being silent and internal and then interacting and connecting with each other. Some of the key things, the morning is sort of the big chunk of practice. And then each afternoon we have these workshops. Those are led by whoever the staff are. Our staff are all volunteers. Some folks here have been staff, volunteers at our retreats. And they lead workshops in whatever their expertise is. So there's an art, mindful movement, like mindful sports, nature walks, discussions on alcohol and addiction, or diversity, gender issues, sexuality. So a whole range of different workshops that the teens can choose from in the afternoon. And then the last night, you see here, it's the community share. We call it, instead of calling it a talent show, so people can just share any kind of music, poetry, anything that they want. And then we usually have a dance party afterwards. And I'm the last person that everyone has to make go to bed. So this is some of the feedback that we get from the teens. It's pretty powerful. It really is fun and meaningful work to be able to do. And they get it very quickly. They really drop into the practice very quickly. I think about this a lot. I kind of think of that teenagers have sort of less crust on their hearts still. And so they're able to just drop into the practice, into the connection, a lot more quickly than I think some of us as adults can nowadays. So it's really beautiful to be a part of. And so these are just our testimonials. We do evaluations, and then parents write to us and kids write to us, and we get these kind of beautiful stories and anecdotes and words all the time. But we wanted to do some more kind of quantitative research on the impact of these retreats. And so that's where Dr. Brian Gala did research this past summer.
All right. This is like the second time I've seen these slides. So this is a pre-post and 3-month follow-up type of retreat. There's no control group, which is appropriate for sort of this very early stage. This teen retreats is a new thing, so it's pretty appropriate. But Brian did a lot of really cool analyses that you can do with a single group design to answer some pretty interesting questions that I think are important. Can everyone hear me? Okay. So the first is just, what are the pre-post effects, and do those effects last 3 months after the retreat? So very basic question. And then starting to look at mechanisms, if there's benefits in mental health, depression and anxiety, why? And is it because they're increasing in mindfulness? Is it because they're increasing in self-compassion? So those are sort of the two of the variables that we looked at that we thought maybe were carrying the variance, that they were the reason why people improved. So that will be something that will be coming. Determinants of meditation practice. So who stays, which types of people stay with the practice at 3 months? So who's still practicing at 3 months? What kinds of factors predict that? Does meditation practice, so the other question is, does practice matter? Does the number of days of practice predict the outcome? Because if it doesn't, then it might not be the meditation that's having the effect. It might be all these awesome, skills and social interactions that you're building for them. So it's important to have a correlation between that practice and the outcome. So that's the basic idea. The participants, this is actually very interesting. I do a lot of research with youth in education, and my samples are like 99% white. And that's actually pretty true for a lot of my clinical samples in adults as well. So this is actually pretty surprisingly not white, considering what you usually see in meditation studies. So to have this kind of diversity is actually pretty rare. So I just wanted to sort of point that out. So these are the measures. Again, there is a baseline before they started, immediately after the retreat, and then 3 months later. Psychological resilience was measured with the MAS, the Mindful Attention Awareness Scale, the FFMQ, Kristen Neff's Self-Compassion Scale. Mental health was measured with the CESD, which is a pretty classic depression measure, the PANAS, which is the Positive and Negative Affect Scale, Nolan Hoxhama's Rumination Scale. And there was also a personality scale, which I forget what it was called, but pretty standard kind of thing. And then they also measured the days of mindfulness practice. Actually, interestingly, they separated out mindfulness practice and loving kindness practice and tallied those up separately and got some pretty interesting results. So that's a really cool way to analyze stuff. In terms of attrition, so these are the people that dropped out of the study. Everybody finished the retreat, right? Yeah. But in terms of finding them again after 3 months, we didn't get everybody. So we started with 132, and the final N was 109. So still a good number. And then just looking at trying to see whether the numbers that we have that we're analyzing are related to any, are the people that didn't answer the questions, is there any consistent predictor of that, because if it's like, oh, everyone who dropped out was, a specific minority, or they were all boys, or then the data gets a little sketchy when that happens. So but basically the attrition wasn't related to anything that we could find, not related to gender, ethnicity, age, parent education, previous meditation practice, or any of the baseline scores on anything. And there were no differences between boys and girls on any of the measures, which I made Brian look at because we're finding a lot of gender issues in our data. So here are some of the outcomes. Blue is time 1 baseline, red is right after the retreat, and green is 3 months later. So these are the psychological resilience scales, the non-reactivity scale from the FFMQ, the mindful attention scale from the Moss, and Kristen Neff's self-compassion scale. And very clearly there is an improvement on all 3 of them, which actually continues to improve even after the retreat. So that's interesting that it doesn't just drop off, that it's not just the high of the retreat. It seems to continue for positive outcomes. That it was a little bit different for negative outcomes. Perceived stress, somehow the post-test got lost. But there's a decrease to time 3. And same thing with rumination. It seems like rumination continues to decrease after to 3 months. But depression had a little bit of a different time course in that it decreased post-retreat and then started to climb up again at 3 months. It's still a significantly lower than it was when it started, but it's not the same kind of trajectory as the other ones. And you start to see that again in negative mood, the exact same thing. So 2 different scales, the exact same process where you see an immediate improvement in negative mood post-retreat, and that seems to climb back up at 3 months. So that's an interesting, you see that twice and it becomes believable. And the same thing with positive mood. It looks like there was a big kick in positive mood right after the retreat, which seems to go down a little bit at 3 months. Same thing with life satisfaction. So if you look at all the stars, it's a pretty impressive that almost every single variable is improving. Everything that they measured is improving significantly. Okay, so do changes in mindful attention or self-compassion predict long-term follow-up? So this is a question of mechanism, and the question is, what's more important, or what's important? What do you want to be cultivating? What is carrying the variance? Is it mindfulness? Is it an attention variable, or is it self-compassion? And so my general practice for slides is to make everything that's cool and significant colored. Hold on one second. And so if it's white, then you can ignore it. So basically what you're seeing here is that across the different outcomes, perceived stress, rumination, depression, negative mood, positive mood, and life satisfaction, those are the main outcomes, they all are improving with improvements in self-compassion. And some of them are improving with improvements in mindfulness. So if you're going to bet on a variable, I would bet on self-compassion. It seems like that is carrying a lot of the variance. It's also true that what the students, what do you call them? Students yeah. come in with their baseline scores also predict how much they change too. But in terms of what they learn, it seems like self-compassion is not only correlated with everyone, but pretty highly correlated. Some of those, negative 0.45, those are pretty big correlations. So interesting. There was also it reminds me of an article that Nick Van Dam published recently, I think this year, where he found that self-compassion actually predicted outcome much more than mindfulness. And the caveat is, beware of all self-report scales. But I just think it's interesting to think about what we're cultivating in these our patients. Okay, so this is about who continues to practice, they're all kind of enforced to practice on the retreat, but who sticks with it? So there's a couple things that aren't that surprising. Students that have more self-control, students that have an intention to practice, students that have more self-efficacy, which is basically the ability to do what you say you're going to do, so to follow through on your intention. All of those things were associated with actually practicing both mindfulness and loving kindness. So that's not really that surprising. But what was surprising was whether your parents were married or not. That seemed to determine whether you practice, and in particular, divorced parents. So if a student had parents who were not married or divorced, or never married, then they tended to practice more. Wow. So that's a variable that I haven't seen before. That's a new one. So one that we should probably be, if you're a researcher, and especially in youth, checking in on that, because that's pretty new. The other one, and again, this is, I told you we're finding gender effects in our data, was that if you're a girl, then you're more likely to put in more days of loving kindness practice. So I guess, I don't know if that's surprising, but that's what they found. And that's also, girls seem to like loving kindness practice more, and they seem to do more of it. Does practice predict outcome 3 months after the retreat? So this is just looking at, again, divided between mindfulness practice and loving kindness practice. Does doing either of those practices predict outcome? And you can see by the fact that they're all bold and they're all starred that doing either practice predicts the improvement in all outcomes. So which is, if you're not a researcher, this is like crazy to have this many stars on the table, like that it's like associated with everything. And in general, it doesn't really matter which practice you do. Mindfulness and loving kindness seem to be about the same for all outcomes, with a couple exceptions. One is self-compassion, and you see that there's a slightly higher correlation when you do loving kindness practice. Again, not that surprising considering that a lot of metta practice is about compassion, self-compassion. Interestingly, if you think about the fact that more girls are doing loving kindness practice, girls also tend to be a lot harder on themselves and have really high levels of self-judgment. So that there might be a gender effect there also, that they're decreasing a lot in self-compassion because they need it. And then the other one, just notable, that depression was the one that didn't really move that much, remember? Depression got better after retreat, but then it got worse again in 3 months. But it seems like loving kindness really seems to kind of make a dent in depression. We find this a lot. I do depression research, so we also find that to be true. So it may be that for people who tend to be more depressed, that you can direct them towards the loving kindness practice, maybe a little more than mindfulness. And that is actually something that the Buddha did, where for particular types of people, particularly the aversive type, which are people that find problems with everything, depressed people would fall into that category. The recommended practice are the Brahma Viharas, so which loving kindness is one of 4. So it fits theory. The data fits the theory. So and this is just a summary of all the data. If it's in blue, it's a significant finding, and if it's in gray, which you can't really see, just up there. So very promising findings for a pilot study, and definitely need to follow up with a controlled study, and we've been talking about different models of that. So,
awesome. Thank you so much, Willoughby. Great. So just, I think, quickly, based on some of that research, that it's awesome to hear this too, for me, and have it. He wrote a paper, and I didn't quite understand it, so this is good. Then now I do. Thank you. it just really resonates with our direct experience of, I often tell the girls to try loving kindness because they're describing a lot of self-hatred. But in any case, so another thing that we're doing based on this research is how do we engage teens to keep practicing post-retreat? So many of our teens keep coming back in the summer and at New Year's, and if we have day-longs, so they get that kind of touch-in. But what we're really going to be working on this coming year is trying to develop ongoing programs between retreats. So, and mostly virtual, because our teens are really spread out. We have some kind of hubs where we actually do have a few classes in person, but we're looking at more online and also thinking about this one-to-one mentoring program. That would be an online mentoring to keep the teens practicing and engaging and having those benefits through the year. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about, one of the things that I think is pretty unique to what we do is this emphasis on relational mindfulness, which makes sense for teens for so many reasons. They're at that time in their development where social engagement is primary. And there's so much happening socially at that time, the bullying, trying to figure out their place in the world. So we really emphasize relational mindfulness. And I've been diving into this a little bit more personally. One thing that I think is really interesting is in the Satipatthana Sutta, which is sort of the foundational Buddhist sutta from which mindfulness practice comes. It's actually taught mindfulness both internally and externally, and internally and externally. And that's actually repeated over and over again. And so I've been like, well, what does that mean, right? And so I've sort of been trying to study it a little bit. I think a lot of modern meditation teachers think of externally as like seeing, hearing, smelling the world that is not in this encased body. But actually there's a lot of evidence from the suttas to point to external mindfulness actually means basically attuning to people outside of yourself. So knowing what someone might be feeling, listening to what they're saying. So once you have the internal experience, you know what you feel, you know what you think, you can then start to perceive that in others. And we know this through mirror neurons and all of these other elements. You don't have to be psychic. So in a way, what we're doing too is teaching the teens how to attune to each other, to more completely, and to be attuned to. And it supports all of these different aspects, self-acceptance, empathy, and compassion. Okay, so I'm just going to describe a few of them. We only have about 7 minutes left, so I'll describe some of the activities we do. So like I said, we do an opening that we did earlier. We do a lot of games, sort of interactive games, the teens. And then each day we have 2 hours of small group work, and that's 6 to 8 kids are in one group with 2 adult facilitators. And they're divided basically by age, but we also look for issues that each teen might be working with, diversity, so there's allies. It actually is like one of the most time-intensive processes, like putting together the small groups and their leaders. So we put a lot of time into that. And then in the small groups, originally they were created to sort of as like practice interviews, but we really don't do that anymore. We'll check in with the kids about like how's your practice going, answer questions about meditation. But then a lot of it is really an opportunity for them to share who they are, what's going on in their life, and then to hear from the other teens. And it's surprising that many times, one of the other things that's very primary to the teen experience often is I'm the only person feeling this way. I'm the only person experiencing this. And then we do these activities and it's like, oh my God, everyone feels this way. Everyone feels this way, and then there's things that are really unique about me. And it's that a beautiful balance. So the first thing we do is really create a very safe container for them in that small group. There's the bigger container, so all the teens take the mindfulness trainings or the precepts, agreeing not to lie, not to harm each other, no drugs and alcohol, or any sexual behavior. So we do that as a big group, and then in the small group we create an even safer container. So that's kind of step one. And I think this is important because a lot of people talk about not doing these sorts of things in schools. And I haven't worked that much in schools. My primary work is in this kind of rarefied, very safe container. And so we are able to drop in really deep with the teens, and they're able to share in a way that they feel super safe and accepted. But I think there's so many elements that go into creating that safety. So I think that's important as you think about if you wanted to take some of these activities home, to really think about that container. The other thing that I find is teens are really good at self-moderating. And our job as facilitators is to let them do that, let them lead, so that we're not pushing them to any particular insight or catharsis. It's all about what do they feel comfortable with sharing, and we're holding the space for that. And then the final thing as a facilitator is, particularly with teens, and why I love it so much, is that you have to get real, right? You have to be totally authentic. And you have to really look at what your own agendas are in being with them. Like they pick up on that, right? So really looking at it, you might be, well, I want to help them. I want to notice that that kind of intention arises for you. That's like you're just creating a space. You're being as real in a way that's, responsible, and then let it happen. Let them kind of lead to a certain degree. That's our ethos around small group. And so a few things that we do, one is called, we always check in. We have different check-in activities, whether my body feels, my mind feels, my heart feels. We all go around. So we do a lot of going around in a circle. You can pass anytime you want. But I find that to be so helpful because then everyone speaks, or everyone has a space. And no matter what group you're in, one teen will want to talk more, one teen will sit back. So if you do things where you're just going around the circle, it means everyone has at least the space to share. And then we do something called lightning rounds. Lightning rounds are you quickly answer a question. So you finish a sentence. So let's just try this really quickly. Like this front row, can you guys kind of just come in a little bit? Just to demonstrate. So we're a circle. Okay. And so the way that lightning rounds work is the hardest part of it is you're not rehearsing. The hardest part is you don't rehearse. So you're not thinking, I'm going to offer a question, and you're not thinking, practicing what you're going to say. So you're listening to each person. So first, not rehearsing, and then second, not ruminating about what you did say. Was that cool? That was stupid. Right? Which, this is actually radical to not do that. Okay? And so then if it comes to you, you just say whatever comes to mind, and if nothing comes to mind, pass. But we try to kind of go quick. It helps. This can also be a way to kind of, if the energy is dropping, to kind of pick it up a little bit. So my favorite food is. Okay, so that's just a quick example, and then we can moderate it. We can drop it in or out, and they can go with it. Then the other thing that we do, if you really knew me. So this is a game that's often, or an activity that's used in a few other settings. If you really knew me, you would know this. And so sometimes we'll go around 1 minute at a time in the circle, and the kids just keep repeating that. If you really knew me, you would know. If you really knew me, you would know. Just keep going until the minute is up. And then the final game that we play a lot is called Hot Seat. And we are actually looking for a better name than this. Marv Belzer of UCLA actually has a $200 bet out if anyone can come up with a better name. So, but he has high standards. So what it is, one person chooses to be on, actually we have till 9:15.
She wants to put me in the hot seat.
Great. This is great.
I don't mind.
Do you have a preference?
Adam?
Yeah, okay. Thank
Hi,
you,
Dave.
This is great. Okay, so we're going to put Willoughby in the hot seat.
There's a lot of people that know me here.
So can we move back a little bit again? And Willoughby, do you want to come sit here?
Oh, no.
So we would have had a few small groups together. So we would be starting to kind of warm up and know each other. I would have suggested the meeting, we could do this thing if you want to. I don't know, whatever. And then I really let the teens decide, yes, I want to do that. And when we've got teens in a group that have done it before, it's like the first thing they want to do. It's like, everyone wants to do hot seat. So the way that we describe it, hot seat is really a group meditation. And Willoughby becomes our object of meditation. So it's like Willoughby is our breath, right? So we're going to try to keep our attention and our focus continuously on Willoughby. And we're cultivating that same kind of kind curiosity that we have towards all the rest of our experience with mindfulness. So we're sending that towards Willoughby. And then Willoughby gets to really be with her experience of having all that attention. And the thing is, at first, like, who does this sound? Okay, so then the next step is we can all ask Willoughby questions, right? So you'll raise your hand. I'll call on you. You ask your question. Willoughby answers however she wants to. She can say, I don't want to answer that. She can, however she wants to answer it. When you feel like your question has been answered, you say, thank you. And then she stops talking. So you got to remember to say thank you. She stops talking, and then anyone else raises their hands and I call on you. It's not a back and forth. So if you have a follow-up question, thank you, raise your hand, and then I would call on you again. This is important as a facilitator because we can help redirect the energetics if needed. And then as a facilitator, we're really paying attention and being a grounding for Willoughby. So I would normally be sitting just directly across from her. And I'm looking for how is she doing. So we do talk about trauma, and I've done some trauma training. And so that is something we're kind of looking for. But what I find really interesting is the teens themselves moderate that. So they might ask, like, what's the worst thing that ever happened to you? And then it might get pretty intense. And then the next kid will be, what's your favorite kind of ice cream? So they are able, there's a way that the group is helping to support and hold it. But then as facilitators, we're the final stop with that. And then it's important that we're not trying to change or fix or get Willoughby to see anything. We're just curious. Like, who is this person, Willoughby, sitting here in front of us, right? And then how does that, and also, you might ask questions like, she says something, well, how did you deal with that? Because it might be something you're thinking about, and we have this process. So to whom does this seem really frightening, that you'd never want to do it? Great. Which, you can run out. So this is really true, right? I mean, it took me a few years before I was willing to go on the hot seat. But then you do it, and it's like getting a shower of loving attention. Oh yeah, they have to volunteer. It's totally volunteer, so you don't have to do it. But I mean, they're all scrambling for it. A lot of the work of small group is like scheduling out, managing your hot seat times, right? Yeah. So it can be quite a lovely experience, even though at first it's like it does get hot, Okay. So a good way to start Willoughby, if you're comfortable, is 3 if you really knew me's. 3 if you really knew me's. So if you really knew me, you would know.
If you really knew me, you would know that I am named after a man. If you really knew me, you would know that I have a tattoo on my head. Let's see. Wow. So many things are like percolating that I'm censoring.
It is recorded.
Oh yeah, it's recorded. Great. If you really knew me, you would know that I don't like these things.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. Okay, so then if anyone just bringing to mind Willoughby and any curiosity or questions you might have, please.
Willoughby, what's the tattoo?
Oh, yes. The tattoo is of a psi symbol, which is a symbol for sort of anomalous cognition that 12 of us got when I worked at the Rhine Institute for Parapsychology, and there were 12 of us that all got matching tattoos. Yeah.
Fiona.
Do you have any brothers or sisters?
Yes, I have an older brother, Nathan, who is a chef. Oh, spare time. What's that? Hang out with my partner who's right there.
You had to choose a name for yourself.
Another one. Well, I have a friend, and I sometimes go around and pretend that we're brother and sister, and I'm a professor. This is like I'm pretending to be an undergrad, and we walk around, and I tell them that my name is Gabrielle. So. How did we get down this road? We studied anomalous cognition, ESP, clairvoyance, psychokinesis, and survival of consciousness. Yeah, cool. Fun times.
Thank you.
I mean, I wish that I was better at, I don't know if I'm answering this question, but I'm sort of fascinated by like mathematics, but I'm just really bad at it. So it's like a language that I can't speak, but I always imagine that it would be cool to learn to know it.
How do you feel right now?
On the spot. My hands are sweaty. My mouth is dry. It's also being. You never drink coffee and be in the hot seat. It just like amplifies everything. I'm hot. Yeah. It's mostly physiological because I have to think about what you're asking. And then, yeah. Oh,
Okay.
what?
Last question.
Do you have a better name for the hot seat?
No.
Okay.
You gave it a good one. On the spot.
Oh, yeah, on the spot. Could be. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so thank you so much, Willoughby. So, then the way that we always finish is we go around the circle and offer an appreciation for the person on the hot seat. So we can just do a few popcorn style. If there's anything that Willoughby shared, or a way that she shared, or something that struck you while she was speaking that you appreciate, or if you know Willoughby outside of here, you can also. So we would say in the rest of the retreat, if there's something she's done that you wanted to appreciate, you could do that. And so I'll just popcorn style, and I'll kind of call on you. So, yeah.
Have a lot of fun doing it.
Okay. So I really appreciate that every time we talk, I learn so much, like, as if it was like a class or a semester program. Yeah, it's awesome. Thank you. All right, and so then the last thing is, Willoughby, you can share what the experience was like for you, if you have any words.
Well, it got much better at the end. I like that part.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you very much. Great. Yeah. Great. So we have like about 5 minutes to ask any questions.
Yeah, so I have a question.
And where do you see bigger differences?
Better effects for women.
For women than men. Yeah. I would say, for me, I cry more at the boys. Yeah. And that might be my, like we do this closing circle where they get to stand up and share something. And it's almost always the boys that say something like, I feel like I can feel my feelings, or I love myself, or, you know, stuff that's not very boy. So in a way, I sometimes feel like they might have the bigger impact. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Back, yeah, right, yeah. And then
just two quick things.
We didn't, but that would be great. And I think what you're saying is important. The teens have to want to come. We do an application process, and if it looks like they didn't fill out the application, we call them. We'll say, don't come if you don't want to be here. So they do have to want to be there. Yeah. I mean, we have like one last question, so then we can go out into the hall and answer more. So. We do. We actually have a lot of and just spontaneously have started their own meditation clubs. I mean, it's unbelievable. And then they get all their friends to meditate. So our retreats have normally grown because then the kids all bring their friends the next year. But we are thinking about like putting together a packet of like how to start a meditation club or something like that. The materials or the slideshow. Yeah, if you want to, on the way out, you can grab, this is our card about our summer retreats. Doesn't have all of them, there's a few more. And then my card, and then I can send you the PowerPoint and the materials and stuff. Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right.